Hey everybody, welcome back to another great episode of Addicted to Gear. What I'm holding in my hands today is a very fine looking Paul Reed Smith SE245 guitar. And this guitar is made in Korea. And I'm a big fan of Paul Reed Smith guitars. You guys already probably know that if you've watched my videos. I already have a couple of Paul Reed Smith guitars. And I'm not really partial to, oh, it has to be made in the US because the Korean ones are no good, or, you know, oh, the US ones are too expensive, so I'm just gonna buy a Korean made version. Really, I don't really care, honestly. When a guitar is well built and it's being sold for a reasonable price in terms of quality, I'm there. So today I want to talk about this guitar, specifically its features, the way it's been built and what you get for your money. Go over that with you. But this video is going to be followed up by another video. So it's going to be a two-parter because I know that you guys really like to hear the guitars and you really like me to play the guitars when I'm reviewing it. So to keep things simple, I'm going to review the guitar in this video and I'm going to follow up this video with a two-parter, which is going to be me playing this guitar and also playing my SC245 American-made version of the same model so that you can compare side by side what you're getting for your money. And then you can decide whether or not you want to buy the import model or the American-made model, and you can decide for yourself which one is more bang for the buck. So without further ado, let's get started and let's look at this great instrument. First of all, I have to say, it's a beautiful color. The red on this guitar is really, really nice. It's got a little bit of like sparkle underneath it. If you look at it very carefully, it's not just red. It's like a red sparkle, but very subdued, very nice. It reminds me of the paint jobs that you get on some of the Telecasters from Fender. When the finish wears away, you get like a gold color underneath. So it's almost like a two-tone kind of effect, which is pretty nice. Now, this guitar is made in Korea, as I mentioned at the top of the video, but don't let that fool you. PRS make great quality guitars, and whether you're buying the American versions or the Korean versions, you are getting the most guitar that you can get for that price, whether it's below $1,000 or $3,000 or $4,000. The question is whether or not you're willing to pay that kind of money for an instrument. If you're a professional, you might think it's well worth buying the more expensive American-made versions for the few extra details you get with the guitar. And if you're maybe just a semi-professional or maybe a student and you can't afford the more expensive ones, the import models are fantastic. I'm actually a bigger fan of the single cut than I am of the double cut for some reason. I don't know why, but I've always liked the single cuts. I like Telecasters, I like Gibsons, and I like the single cuts on these guitars as well. And I feel that when you put the switch here, the three-way at the top, it's sort of more of a natural place to put it than some of the ones that have them here in the back. This guitar has 4 knobs, as you can see, and it's the standard layout that you would normally get on a Gibson style guitar. You have 2 volumes, 2 tone knobs. You can mix the two, so you can blend the pickups between the front, the front and the back with the tone knobs, or you can turn one off completely and do the little switch thing. Of course, you have the birds, and there's just something missing on a PRS guitar if it doesn't have the birds. But there are some people out there that just don't like the birds and prefer the dots. So you still have a choice. The inlays on this guitar are plastic, but they're very well done. Considering they're birds and the outline on the inlays are more complicated, they're very well done. You know, there's not much glue around or anything like that. There's no overcutting of the inlays. So you're getting nice quality workmanship there. And that's one thing that I have to say is that even though you buy one of these guitars in Korea, there's no sloppy craftsmanship. You know, the neck is always set in properly. The frets are always very well dressed. There's no sharp edges on the frets here. Very nicely rounded. The paint is well done. Even the binding that goes around this guitar is actually wood binding like you would get on the more expensive models. So let's have a look at that. There you go. So you can see the binding there. Beautiful, nice wood binding, paint job. The lines are really crisp. There's no sloppy line there at all. The back of the guitar is also the same kind of configuration. You have the tummy tuck here. You have the cutout here, so that you have better access. Very comfortable guitar. Not any heavier than my American made guitar. Very well balanced. One thing I do love about these models is the wraparound bridge. So the bridge is really cool because it gets rid of the stop tail that you would normally have on a guitar like this. Now, the cool thing about this is that you don't have any adjustment for intonation. And a lot of people might think that's a negative because, you know, if you swap strings and put heavier gauge strings, you might have some intonation issues. But I play 9s. They're hybrid slinkies that I normally put on my guitars. And I've never had issues with intonation with this style bridge. Now, PRS has actually introduced a bridge like this that is wraparound that does also include adjustable bridge saddles. And you'll see that on the Zach Myers model, the semi-hollow body. I did a video review of that guitar, so you can check that out. So if you are not a fan of this bridge, you can definitely swap it out for one that does have adjustable saddles. But honestly, I don't see any reason to do that unless you're playing very, very heavy string gauges. The tuners are not locking, they're standard tuners. So you're not gonna have the ability to lock your strings, but the tuners overall are quite good quality tuners. They don't slip. And if you install your strings properly, you really don't need locking tuners. They do have a couple of advantages if you want to do quick string changes, but honestly, locking or not, I think the tuners work very well. The nut on this guitar is a plastic nut, and it looks the same shape as you would get on a standard American-made version, but the nut is plastic. So I think they're probably using graphite nuts on the American versions. They don't really specify what the material is, but in my opinion, I'm pretty sure they're graphite, whereas the imports are plastic. So that's where they save some money there. They have the truss rod cover here that doesn't have anything written on it. And the frets on these are medium frets. The neck is not as slim as some of the other models. It's a little bit, not beefy, I wouldn't say beefier, but it feels a little bit fuller in the hand. And I actually like that because some of the other models, like the Tremonti model, is actually pretty thin back to front, and it feels a little wider. Whereas these are kind of more of a, I guess you would call them more of a traditional neck. The neck that I have on my Zach Myers, for any of you that have Zach Myers guitars, is actually thicker than this one, back to front. So this one's kind of in between. But it feels very, very nice, and I have no issues with it. Now, the pickups are where a lot of people are going to be interested in hearing my comments, because the pickups basically make or break the guitar. And what I find is that the pickups here on the PRS SE245 are not bad pickups. I mean, you're still going to get pickups that are going to be sort of in the budget line, but they don't necessarily sound bad. It really, they're punchy, they cut through. It really is not a bad pickup on the guitar. And I think a lot of people that are buying this guitar that are beginner intermediate players will be very happy with these pickups. Of course, you always have the option of swapping them out for something else, something more expensive or more boutique if you're looking for a specific sound. But overall, they're not garbage pickups. They sound very good. And I'll make you hear that in the follow-up video. As far as the wiring goes, you know, it's typical wiring. I don't think I need to show you what's under the covers here because it's pretty boring. But what you might want to know is that the guitar is a mahogany back. The top is maple top, and the back of the neck is also mahogany. So this guitar is painted in such a way that the paint matches throughout the back of the neck. The neck is not sanded down. So for example, the Zach Myers guitar does have a neck that is a little bit less glossy than this one. This one is just glossy all the way through, but it plays really, really nicely. The fretwork on this guitar is immaculate. There's no sharp edges at all. There's no bad paint job or lines that have been made that are not sharp. So the new versions have the gold script Paul Reed Smith signature like the American versions have, and I think that's a good thing that they changed, because it just gives the guitar a little bit more class. But you know, once you get over that, I mean, the guitar is definitely still a great sounding and playing guitar. Is it worth the money? I would absolutely say it is. You know, if you buy these guitars new, they're probably around the $800, $900 price point. But you can buy these guitars all day long used at about $500, $600. And if you get lucky, you might even find one for less than that. And at that price point, you can't get better, honestly. I've rarely seen a PRS guitar arrive where you need to do major truss rod adjustments or height adjustments on the actual bridge. It's always very, very nicely done before it actually leaves the warehouse. There's not much you need to do to these guitars, you know, besides maybe put on some locking strap buttons if you want, and change the pickups if they're really not to your liking. What else can I say? I mean, what else would you want to have on this guitar? It's really a bunch of bang for the buck, and if you're interested in picking one up, I would highly recommend the guitar. This guitar will last a lifetime if it's properly taken care of. This top does have a little bit of a carve. It's what I call a gentle carve. So you can see that there is a little bit of work being done there, but it's, you know, by far not as deep and obvious as what you would get on the American made versions. The woods obviously on the American made versions are a little bit more, I'd say, higher quality woods or more refined, and especially on the ones that are not painted a solid color. So, you know, PRS is very famous for its beautiful bursts and tints that you can get, and people are willing to pay a heck of a lot more money when you actually have a guitar where you have a beautiful grain that's been stained, a beautiful color, and the finish on the American-made models are impeccable. I believe this is probably just polyurethane, and I think on the American-made models, they do use some kind of poly, if I'm not mistaken, but it's probably a higher grade version because they do want the tops to look beautiful and shiny and translucent, and the inlays on the American versions are also mother of pearl or abalone. So they're not plastic like you would get on these. The nut is a graphite nut as opposed to a plastic nut. And of course, the pickups are different types of pickups. Overall, it's not a huge thing. So if you're looking at saving yourself some serious dough, pick one up with one of these import models, and you're going to be a happy camper. And the SEs are on my radar as well, even though I own an American PRS, because you can pop in some alternate pickups in here, and you can have pretty much the same tone that you're getting on an American made version. You can go on the PRS website and get all the specs on this guitar. If I've left anything out, you gotta excuse me, but you know, there's always a lot to cover when I'm reviewing a guitar like this. But if you have questions about this particular model, this particular guitar that you want to share with me, then definitely just leave your comments below and I'll answer them like I always do. And guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. This is why I make these videos, and you guys are always very helpful in the comments that you leave, and I like the interaction that you provide with my videos. I think that's fantastic. Keep it up. I appreciate that. Hit the little bell icon if you haven't already done so that you'll know next time I post a video, especially the follow-up video to this one, so that you'll be notified and you can experience the shootout for yourself. So please stay tuned and keep rocking. Thank you for joining me here on Addicted to Gear. See you soon.